Alright there geezers, Jules here from FGS, home of the Future Game Show. And you know what? As you can tell from my appearance, my incredible gaming skill, and the fact that this piece of sound foam over here has been broken for ages and I cannot be bothered to fix it, I am a person that lives a life of true and utter perfection. Pause for laughter. Yet, it may shock you to know that I'm not actually a perfect being, and it's at this point in the script that I've written here, bring in Kerry, my girlfriend, to confirm this, but I realised that doing so would be like opening Pandora's box and we'd be here all day just learning about the mistakes I've made this morning. For the record, it's 7:30 AM. But you know what? Being perfect is overrated, my dudes, because it turns out that even when you're absolutely nailing things, some video games actively step in to punish you or make the game so obscenely hard as a result that you end up failing in spectacular fashion. You tried hard and you died even harder. So let's have a chat. As I'm Jules, this is FGS, and these are 8 video games that wrecked try-hard players. And you know the drill, this is the deep cut with Jules Gill, baby! So expect to see games you don't know about, need to know more about, or ones you've not thought about in a long old while. So let's kick things off with number 8, the 7th Saga. I tell you what, friends, my hand is getting sore from doing the repeated takes of that. We are lucky to live in the era of gaming that we enjoy today. I mean, sure, there are microtransactions everywhere, terrible live service models that are designed to actively waste your time, horrible working conditions, a severe lack of imagination at the AAA stage, and where was I going with this again? Oh yeah, that's right. Even though we have this and so much more of what I term the badness, at least regional imports aren't causing as much damage as they did back in the day. I mean, seriously, sometimes you be both blessed and cursed by the release of an international title on your home soil, as it was very common for developers to tinker with difficulties and implement changes based on what they thought that corner of the world could handle. And yet, in the utterly bizarre case of the 7th Saga, it was actually the export to Japan that was the easier of the two versions, because the US version, the original copy, was utterly brutal. How so? Well, it's probably because it's the only game I can think of where actively running from battles is the only way to beat the game. Confused? Well, so was I when I was a kid, because it turns out that thanks to some incredibly harsh scaling that was tied to the level of your character, certain rival boss battles would be legitimately impossible. You see, when you level up, so do they, except while leveling up your character nets you a handful of points to spread about, your opponent was programmed in a different way, meaning that they leveled up to fixed builds that far exceeded any skills that they should have had access to. Therefore, the more you train, the bigger the pain, and many players often resorted to only fighting the absolute minimal battles possible rather than a more perfect hero route that would see them leveling up their abilities across all areas. It does create a rather funny image, though, of the hero of the ages dodging lowly grunts like they're an utter coward, which, to be fair, is probably the only fun you'll have before the 7th Saga absolutely crushes you. Sick. Number 7, Tetris the Grandmaster 3, Terror Instinct. Right, okay, so you know when you were at school and someone in the class would just come in one day and just decided that they've got a cool nickname and that everyone needs to refer to them by it, and like, no one does? I mean, that is exactly the vibe that I get from this Tetris video game, Grandmaster 3, Terror Instinct. No one's calling you that, mate. No one's calling you that. Terror Instinct? Well, I'm sorry, Demon Slayer, aka Chris, but your chemistry homework still has to be handed in by 3 PM. Although saying that, Terror is indeed on the menu for players who do too well at this game, because it turns out that if you complete the first 2 levels in under 65 seconds, which can be pretty much only done by playing perfectly, the game cracks its knuckles, twirls its evil villain moustache and says, "Gotta go fast, eh, chum?" and hits the setting that turns the drop speed of the Tetraminos to maximum. Now this understandably is going to, as Shakespeare once put it, going to people up quite a fair bit, and many will likely die a few seconds into the next round. But it turns out there's another punishment for those who can actually match this pace, because if you go on to achieve a Grandmaster ranking, you'll be then thrown into a new game where all the pieces are invisible. Yeah, imagine if I had to do the entire show like this. Not as fun anymore. I mean, you're probably just focusing on the bottom left-hand bit of it where you've got the covering for the gas pipes. Sick, isn't it? Brilliant. This is slightly better, right? Yeah, trust me, my friends, you don't want any of what Terror Instinct is bringing to the table. Just walk away. Walk away and avoid it, because apparently everything's invisible in this room. You probably just walked into another invisible table. This sucks. Why is the room full of invisible tables? Number 6, Anachronox. I tell you what, friends, despite modern graphics having such high fidelity that you can examine characters' belly lint, there was something so utterly charming about the late 90s to early 2000s aesthetics, where things were detailed just enough to immediately know what things were. Oft-forgotten deep-cut gem Anachronox, which dropped in 2001, sure does follow this aesthetic blueprint, with characters that look at once detailed, but also permanently either taking a dump or looking like they're taking the when it came to their faces. I mean, seriously, it was like this. Ooh, did I do something sinister in the bathroom? Or am I plotting the downfall of mankind? But to be fair, taking the was this RPG's bread and butter, as it was a sci-fi send-up of the entire genre, often lampooning tropes and taking po-faced mechanics presented in other titles to task. However, one thing that many players found about as funny as finding out that your wife was cheating on you while you're at her wake was the game's absolutely broken level scaling system, which for some reason was tied to just one character in the entire game. The main character, Boots. Now simply put, as Boots leveled up, so too did the enemies in this game. However, if you went on an XP farming run with the smooth talking idiot in charge, you'd turn Boots into an absolute stomping session on your enjoyment, as the other characters in his party would now become utterly useless against the now powerful enemies you were facing. Now the game tried to give these other party members their own scaling to keep pace, but for some reason this was untethered during development and never rebalanced, meaning that if you are an absolute grinder tryhard, you're going to be trying very hard just to make it through this game in one bloody piece. Good luck. And speaking of good luck, let's talk about an absolute blessing to the soul that can be achieved just by clicking a single button. What's this? What's this about? What's this? Oh, it's subscribing to the FGS YouTube channel, my friends. Go on, do it. So many of you already have, because we've been skyrocketing up the subs recently. Over 150,000 at the time of recording of this video. Likely to have gone even higher. So welcome to the channel, all newcomers here. And if you've not subscribed already, consider doing so. We have daily gaming content for you lovely people, including the Soapbox with Nathan. Discover something new, we chat about games that you need to know more about, and of course every Friday you've got the Deep Cut with Jules. Baby, what more could you want? Gold? My house? I can't give these things to you, so you'll have to settle for this instead. Go on, subscribe. Number 5, Disco Elysium. Okay, friends. I feel at this point I can't go any further without mentioning my sweet time summer soldier, Disco Elysium. A game which at this point I've championed so much that I should have death comes faster than realization tattooed on my eyelids for how much its loquacious musings on life, death, and everything in between have stuck with me. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Oh, technically this isn't a deep cut, Jules. But you know what, mate? I'm still coming across people who have no idea what this game is or what it's about or have never played it, so I feel I need to fly that freak flag high. In fact, I tell you what, let's sing the national anthem of Disco Elysium to get everyone not familiar with this title up to speed. Are you ready? Oh, Harry Dubois, you are a useless tool. If you think you can style out this game, you are a fool. The success of failure is high. Try-hard players will be made to cry. For every time you try to outgame this game, you'll fall foul of your one true enemy here, your brain. Thank you, thank you. It's not very catchy at all, is it? Shockingly, very good at describing the situation that you find yourself in at every turn here. God, who would have thought that? Anyway, this is a game that is so anti-tryhard that anyone attempting to get one up over Disco Elysium will soon be buried under a mountain of failed skill checks and bad mental housekeeping. This is because the game actively punishes you for trying to be cool, debonair, eloquent, and in some cases, just plain competent, because Harry just isn't these things. He's crude, he's rash, impulsive, and often violent, and his brain will pull towards these negative traits more often than not. And because these negative traits often show results, those that then nosedive into being a bad cop in order to level up these areas, well, they'll lock themselves into a doomed playthrough where these aspects of his brain take control of conversations and force you to make decisions you simply don't want to. No matter how you cut it, Disco Elysium is a title about accepting the fact you can't always always control the outcome, which to tryhards is kinda like Tesco substituting their salad dressing for hydrochloric acid, aka it's gonna be a painful thing for them to swallow. Number 4, leave home. Right, so I won't lie to you friends. When originally penning this list, I knew I wanted to speak on the absolute stomping that titles using AI directors hand out to try-hard players, especially those found the likes of Left 4 Dead, Vermintide, and Darktide. However, as this is a deep cut, I wanted to dive a little further into this AI adaptive world, and trust me, I found some pretty brilliant examples. From Resident Evil 4 using a flow mechanic to make enemies more challenging if you were hoarding too many items, to Anachronox, which was actually made by one of the leads of Left 4 Dead and so carries a lot of its hallmarks, all the way through to Driver San Francisco using an AI director to calculate what difficulty to set pursuit vehicles to based on the player's own skill. Now as you can tell, there's a lot to choose from, but you know what? Then I came across a little known Xbox indie arcade game known as Leave Home, which outside of CGR Undertow's video may have the least presence on the internet as it's possible to have. Seriously, to my editor Mark right here, I'm sorry, but this is all the footage I could find. However, you will want to know far more about Leave Home, as it's a shooter that actively punishes players looking to, well, shoot, because the game demonstrably gets more difficult the higher your score becomes. Now, the game lasts all of 5 minutes, but the difference between playing as a pacifist versus somebody looking to top the charts is quite extreme, and actually speaks to the game's core message, that maybe leaving home with a ton of fizzy blood and vitriol looking to prove yourself at every turn often results in greater challenges and pressure put on the individual. I mean, sure, the rewards are great, but the abrasion is also increased. So why not take a moment to ask yourself, is a life free full of ruffled feathers more rewarding and peaceful for the soul, or are you going to take the bull by the horns and risk getting gored? Well, that decision is up to you, my friends. Number 3, Chocobo Dungeon 2. And so we now turn to a corner of Square Enix's library of games so unloved that if you listen closely, you can hear Dino Crisis begging for spare change. And it's here, alongside Vagrant Story and Parasite Eve, that we find the Chocobo Dungeon series, a franchise that is so brilliant that it's a shame that Square couldn't give 2 squirts of about it. Although, to be fair, I'd rather that they actually had a lack of love over what they did when they tried to resurrect Chocobo Racing. Ooh. That was ugly, smelly, shameful, and downright greasy. Get it off my screen, Mark, I don't want to see it. So let's instead remember the good times in Chocobo Dungeon 2 and how if you were a tryhard, well, things would soon turn into very bad times. Now this game is a perfect example of how to dissuade players from grinding levels too much, as it hits you with 3 specific mechanics designed to get you to move on and live your bloody best life. Phase 1 sees enemies give less and less XP the more you battle them, thus acting as a clear indicator to off. Phase 2 gives us weapon and armor degradation, meaning that staying in one area too long is going to result in all your gear falling apart. But my favourite phase is the final one, where the game just throws its hands up and says, right, that's it, get out of my house, man, the big light is going on. And this takes the form of Doom itself, which will start hunting down the player much in the same manner that the Grim Reaper does in the Persona series. Except here, this enemy is so hard that your percentage of success could be counted by my uncle's left hand, which only has 1 finger. True story, not a true story. Therefore, if you want to avoid doom, despair, death, and degradation of your loot, just stop being so sweaty and move on to the next area, you goof. Number 2, Tactics Ogre. So, my fellow armchair generals, is there any better feeling than crushing your opponent with a well-laid plan executed by your elitely trained units that you spent hours and hours grinding to perfection? What's that? Sex? What the hell's that? I've just said that I play strategy games. All joking aside though, let's set things to extreme edging now, as we talk about Tactics Ogre, a game which I am forever frothy about, but also, in this sense, nearly saw players throw themselves off of a cliff edge for how it brutalized try-hard players. To cut to the chase, when you learn that enemy scaling is capped in this game and therefore allows you to surpass and potentially cheese the hell out of foes, well, you're obviously gonna get down and grind more than an angle grinder hitting the disc discotheque, right? However, when it comes to the PSP version of Tactics Ogre, you're going to be met with some try-hard countermeasures, as while enemies are indeed level capped, your leveling progress is tied to classes and not the individual character, meaning that while you might be a level 50 mage, your other classes are level 1, and as the enemy is now capped at their max level, training up all those other classes is going to be an utter chore, if not downright impossible in some battles. So the lesson learned here? Well, don't be a smelly loser trying to game the system, and have some fun instead. Who knows? You might even enjoy it. And so we close on the monstrous deep cut, Mushimiesama Futari. Okay, my friends, let's dive into the deep, dark, constricting, horribly oily, oh my god, that's not oil world of anime-centric shmups, which, despite that description, is a rather large subgenre of gaming. Now, if you are to walk the halls of these games with confidence, you need to have two things in large quantities: skill and goddamn patience, as the majority of these bullet hell games will obliterate you in seconds, even on the normal difficulties. And Mushimiesama Futari is no exception here, as you will likely die before finishing pronouncing this strange game's strange name. Because on normal, you'll need to have memorized each enemy's firing patterns perfectly if you're to make it past the first few stages. However, this game is not done when it comes to abusing players, because it turns out that this was just the appetizer. On Maniac mode or Ultra mode, the enemy's health pools seem near infinite, but also their firing patterns change, meaning that you're going to be fighting against your muscle memory at every step as well. Oh, cheers game, you've just taught me one specific way to win your game, and then you've done everything in one fell swoop. If ever there was a deterrent to do well at this title, it was because it teaches those looking to rise to the top that they might as well just start the game on the hardest difficulty, as the game takes no prisoners and changes the bloody rules. So, try-hard players are going to have to get used to being wrecked over and over again if they want to succeed. Cool, I'm trying hard to die hard, and I hate this! I hate this! I also hate pronouncing this game's name, it was too difficult. Mark just put the compilation in of me trying to say this game's name. Mushimiesama, oh my Christ. Mushihime, oh my Christ. Ooh, but there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video games that wrecked try-hard players. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, you can follow me over on my social medias here, and you can follow my lovely editor Mark on his social medias over here as well. But before I go, my friend, I just want to say one thing. Even though we talked today about video games that wrecked people who try hard, you know what? Trying hard ain't that bad a thing in real life, especially if you're trying hard to be kinder to yourself each and every day, because you know what? That is the most rewarding thing. Treat yourself with that love and respect that I know you deserve, all right? You're a massive ledge and you deserve the best things in life, so don't let anything or anyone else, even yourself, tell you otherwise. Now get out there, smash your life goals. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.